So to pick up this final point, the key thing in these old Hollywood movies, the way movies were done back in the 40s and 50s, was that you could show evil, but evil had to be punished. So it was like the decency, which is a key word for Gilda, the decency laws on films in the 1940s and 50s was that you could show and 30s, but you could show evil, but evil had to be punished in the end. So you were not allowed to make a movie in the old days where like the bad guys won. Right? They just can't do that because they thought if people watch a movie where the bad guys are successful, they're going to want to be bad guys. It's going to turn the audience into bad guys. So you can show evil, but you got to make sure it's punished at the end. There are lots of movies, film noir movies like Double Indemnity, that show sexually voracious, powerful women, but then they get killed in the end. And it's still cool to watch. I don't think like die at the end means the director hates the character. I mean, Romeo and Juliet die at the end of Romeo and Juliet, but like, I don't think it means Shakespeare's against love. But in order to like make the critics happy, the censors happy, that you could show evil, but you had to punish it. So what makes Gilda so shocking is that there are women in movies in the 1940s who are like Gilda, these sort of sexually voracious, complicated temptress characters, but they all die. But with Gilda, what they do is they create a situation where they give the audience an out. It's the same out. The cop says to Johnny, she never cheated on you. Johnny can believe that. If he chooses to believe it, he can live happily ever after with Gilda. But if he says to the cop, that sounds like bullshit. Number one, you didn't know her back in the day. Like, he didn't know. Gilda and Johnny had a relationship that predates the events of the movies. The cop doesn't know anything about that. But also, it seems very unlikely that Gilda was just pretending to cheat on these guys. I mean, for starters, she's picking up these guys in clubs. She's taking them back to the hotel room, promising them, if I was a ranch, my name would be Bar Nothing, meaning I'm willing to do anything sort of sexually. Um, so she's taking these guys up to hotel rooms. My question would be, what on earth is she saying once she leaves Johnny and gets into the hotel room to get the guy to not just rape her, right? Like, I mean, she's offering all of this sex, and then she goes into a private room with this guy, and then what is she doing to stop the sex from happening? It seems like a lot of guys, once in a hotel room alone with Rita Hayworth, who promised that they could do anything with her body, it seems like some of those guys would be total assholes to her if she tried to like put the brakes on it at that late date. So it seems unlikely that she hasn't. I think I realize sex and I've boxed myself into a corner. Obviously, rape is not sex, but the idea that my point is because that's impractical. I imagine she was actually having sex with these guys rather than saying no at the last second, because it seems like that would put her in a very difficult position. And again, it's coerced sex. It's tricky. But I'm just imagining this. So the point that I want to make here is it doesn't seem likely that she was how is she paying each guy like an actor to pretend to want to have sex with her? It's hard to imagine how that would work practically. But the cop gives Johnny an out. She was never cheating on you. She was just pretending to cheat on you. So you can be with her and live happily ever after. That also gives the audience an out. It says to the audience, Gilda, didn't you enjoy all of the sort of dirty sex talk in this film? It was all pretend. Gilda was never a bad person, and that's why it's okay for her to live at the end of the movie. Which is nice, because the film audience, like Johnny, this is a link between the audience of the movie Gilda and Johnny's character, didn't actually see her have sex, because they're not going to put a pornographic sex scene in the middle of a movie in 1946. So we don't actually watch her have sex, but Johnny didn't watch her have sex either. So maybe she didn't have sex, which means Johnny gets to live happily ever after with her, and we, the audience, get to enjoy a sexually voracious, powerful woman who gets to live at the end of the movie, which never happens in these kinds of movies from the 1940s and 50s. All right, so it's just like a fascinating move. All right, I think I'm just about done here. It's interesting to me, by the way, the word Pio means desire, and there are statues of Venus de Milo. So it's a little bit like Uncle Pio was almost like Cupid helping these kids get together, and the cop is a little like Cupid, and Venus goddess of love. There's statues of her in the background. Venereal diseases, which is a word for sexually transmitted diseases, the VEN in venereal diseases is the same VEN in Venus, because Venus is the goddess of love, and venereal diseases are the diseases of the goddess of love. And then PO means desire, and the cop is like helping these two kids get together. So it's a strange movie about how these people help Johnny and Gilda live happily ever after, but the director of the movie also helps Johnny and Gilda live happily ever after by just making a space where it's possible Gilda was not having sex with all these guys. He allows us to enjoy the spectacle of her having sex with all these guys without actually with saying, well, she was just pretending. But the whole, what is a movie? Actors and actresses just pretending for you, the audience. So just like Gilda was maybe pretending to have sex with these men to drive Johnny crazy, Rita Hayworth was not actually having sex in this movie. It's just pretend for you, the audience. So it has there's these sort of complicated levels to it. And I say this all the time, but it's not a square, it's a cube, right? A square is what happens on the movie screen, but the cube is what happens with you watching the movie. That makes a cube. If it's just the characters on screen, that's a square, right? But if it's a cube, it's the relationship between you and the film is all just as important. The relationship between Gilda and Johnny is just as important as the relationship between Gilda and you, the audience. That this is the cube part, this is the square part. All right, cool. And the kind of the last thing I kind of want to say before we close is the movie Gilda. There's a famous phrase said about Rita Hayworth. If you've seen the film Notting Hill with Julia Roberts, she says it in that movie, but it's a famous phrase that Rita Hayworth, the actress, used to say that men go to bed with Gilda and they wake up with me, which means that people fall in love with the illusion, the character, but they wake up with Gilda, but they wake up with Rita Hayworth, the actress, the real person. And that it's complicated. When you play someone really famous, people will confuse you with your character. This is extra complicated because Rita Hayworth is not her real name. She was born Margarita Carmen Cancino, and she is Latina. But she hid the fact that she was Latino from her, because Hollywood was like, white actresses would be more popular. So she changed her name to Rita Hayworth and kind of appears like Caucasian, but she's actually Latina, which is fascinating for a couple of levels. But one of the most interesting is this is a movie where they say no past, all future. Balin and Johnny and Gilda are all past, no future. But because of a sort of racist film system in America and racist audience members, Rita Hayworth is really Margarita Cancino, and she changed her name to Rita Hayworth. And then she's famous for playing Gilda. So what you have is this complicated situation in which the character Gilda is covering up her own past. She doesn't want Balin to know about her relationship with Johnny, but the actress Rita Hayworth is covering up the fact that she is Latina, Marguerite Carmen Cancino, for the Hollywood producers and for us, the audience. And then this idea that people go to bed with Gilda and they wake up with Rita, but meaning they go to bed with the dream, but they wake up with the reality. But that reality is also a dream because Rita Hayworth is not even her real name. So what you have in Gilda that makes all of this issues about watching and pretending and control of women and control of people extra interesting is you've got Marguerite Cancino pretending to be Rita Hayworth, pretending to be Gilda. And that is that triple level of illusion. It's like Inception. It's a dream within a dream within a dream, and it's a detail that when you have it makes them. I think that makes the movie extraordinarily fascinating. So thank you for sticking around through my talk through Gilda. I hope you enjoyed the movie, and I will see you guys next time. Go on the discussion board and talk about this stuff. All right.